Hey, I'm Palmer Jones, and today I'll be presenting about the cardiovascular system, and more specifically, the organ of interest, the heart. So first off, the cardiovascular system is a system that allows the transportation of blood throughout the body, and the parts of the cardiovascular system are the blood vessels, and the heart. More about the blood transportation of the body. The blood actually allows our body to gain nutrients for the organs and the tissues. And it also provides oxygen throughout the body. More about the heart now. The heart acts as the pump. And actually the heart is actually made up of cardiac muscle tissue. It also is the reason that blood is able to travel throughout the body, since it actually expands and contracts to pump the blood and move it throughout. It's located anatomically deep of the sternum and superior of the diaphragm, and it's located in the thoracic cavity. Another major part of the heart is the aorta. It is actually the largest artery in our body, and it actually starts and connects to the left ventricle, and it pumps blood through the aortic valve. Next up, we're going to talk about the anatomy of the heart. It's divided into 4 chambers, and it's about the size of your hand while making a fist. It's going to be a little bit bigger though, actually. And it also has pericardium that surrounds the heart. The pericardium actually acts as a lube for the heart. Think of it as an engine with the oil. The oil is to keep the engine moving and without gaining it too much heat to where it will break down. And a fun fact about the cardiac muscle, it actually never gets tired. It is one of the few muscles that actually is able to do that and never has to rest. Physiology of the heart. It is connected into 4 different chambers. You have 2 ventricles and 2 atriums. First off, I'll talk about is the right atrium. The right atrium receives oxygen and poor blood, and it sends it to the right ventricle. From there, the right ventricle sends the oxygen and poor blood to the lungs. And then from the left atrium, we have it receives oxygen-rich blood from the lungs, and it sends it to our left ventricle, which sends oxygen-rich blood to the body. This also circulation allows it from the lungs, which will breathe in oxygen and will release carbon dioxide, which is a toxic thing to our bodies and will kill us if we don't get rid of it. Alright, types of cells and tissues of the heart. So the heart obviously contains the cardiac muscle. And the cardiac muscle is only found in the heart. And for a microscopic point of view, whenever you're viewing it under a microscope, 40x is actually the best way, or best vision or zoom to view it at. How the heart maintains homeostasis. Homeostasis basically is how all the systems work together to keep our body functioning, alive, and healthy. If one system does fail, the whole body will fail, and it can be fatal. More specifically though, we want to know about how the cardiovascular system maintains a homeostasis. It also involves the circulation of blood. Circulation of blood, like I have stated previously, sends oxygen throughout the body. Oxygen also carries the blood throughout the body, and in the blood you have nutrients, which are sent to our tissues and our organs. It removes toxic waste from the body, like I stated previously as well before. It also gets rid of carbon dioxide. And overall, in the big picture, it keeps all of our organs and tissues healthy and allowing us to keep functioning. Now, what would happen if the cardiovascular system were to fail and not maintain homeostasis? For one, it can affect our blood pressure very significantly. So if it goes into high blood pressure, it would cause extreme stress on our heart and our blood vessels, mainly because there's too much blood going through them and it can't do the extreme of what it's already doing. Some side effects of that can be, it can cause a heart attack and or a stroke, and you see that actually in a lot of older people. Now also, if we want to go to the other extreme, which is lower blood pressure, That's basically whenever our heart isn't pumping as much blood throughout our body. It's not saying that it can't pump the blood through our body that it needs to be doing. It's just saying that it's not pumping that blood through our body. Some side effects of that can be a dizziness or even passing out randomly. A very known disease, which actually again happens in a lot of elder people, is known as a heart attack. That is when an artery becomes arteries start building up plaque, and eventually what that will happen is that the plaque then starts breaking away through the artery, and it will move a little bit, and then it starts clogging. That is also known as what is called a blood clot. And then what that stops the artery from doing is it stops the artery from supplying the heart with the inadequate amount of blood that it needs to be using and contributing to the rest of our body. Also, what a heart attack can even do is it can cause permanent damage to a fibrous layer around our heart. And you see this actually a lot. There are some studies that suggest that little kids are able to regrow this fibrous layer around their cardium, but that's very it's still in the testing stages. And what we know for the most part right now is that you are not able to. What happens is whenever you have a heart attack, the cells die and they actually are not able to be regenerated. So if you have a white piece of paper and you start burning it in certain parts, the burning represents a heart attack, and you can't just have that paper back. The paper will not come back, and it will permanently have that damage on it for the rest of its existence. Another common thing that can happen is called heart failure. This happens whenever the heart is now able to not pump as enough blood. So it's not like blood pressure where it could pump it, it just doesn't have the blood to keep pumping it. This is different. It's where our heart is not able to pump the blood throughout the body. So it can have an adequate amount of blood to be pushing through. It just is not able to do it anymore. Long-term effects like that are high blood pressure, obesity, and high cholesterol. You see this more in overweight people and elder people as you get on later in your life. So now for the next few slides, obviously like I stated in the beginning of my presentation, the cardiovascular system is one of the systems that help maintain homeostasis. But in a sense, each system does not do their own thing. They must work with other systems to help do their own system to help maintain our body. So for the first one we'll start with is the endocrine system. The endocrine system produces hormones throughout our body. And the hormones actually send messages to all of our organs all over the body. And if it wasn't for the cardiovascular system, traveling, the hormones wouldn't be able to travel through the blood, and instead they wouldn't be able to get to the organs that they need to send the messages to. So that is how the cardiovascular system works with the endocrine system. Now we're going to talk about how the cardiovascular system works with the respiratory system. Respiratory system, as we know, it's breathing. So whenever we breathe, our lungs intake oxygen, and when we exhale, our lungs get rid of carbon dioxide. Oxygen, as we know, also travels through the blood and supplies nutrients to all of our organs and tissues. This is what is used to keep them functioning and keep them alive. And the next system I want to talk about is how the cardiovascular system works with the digestive system. As we know, the digestive system is whenever we intake food and our body begins to break it down. What it begins in is whenever it breaks down in our stomach, it begins to break down not into the food, but it starts breaking down into the nutrients and the amino acids. And then from there, it's able to get into our bloodstream, and that is what, whenever I was referring to nutrients traveling throughout the body, that is where it comes from what we eat. So without the digestive system, we wouldn't have the nutrients in our body at all, and our blood would have no nutrients to actually provide our body. Cardiovascular system works with the nervous system, which happens to also be me right now, incredibly nervous, Mrs. Oswald. The brain sends signals to the heart. So what can happen is our heart continuously, like I said, expands and contracts. That is an involuntary action. Without our nervous system, our heart wouldn't know to do that. We don't tell our heart, it's the same thing with our lungs. We don't tell it to keep breathing. It's like the same. We don't tell our heart to keep pumping them to send the blood throughout the body. So without the nervous system, our heart wouldn't know to keep pumping. And if our heart didn't keep pumping, obviously it'd be a very fatal consequence. And for the final system that I want to show about how the cardiovascular system works with other systems is the skeletal system. So as we know, the skeletal system has 7 functions. We went over it earlier in the semester. But for the main function, one of the main functions I want to talk about with the skeletal system is how it protects. We don't really think about it as much as protection because without thinking about the rib cage. And with our ribs, it protects our internal organs, mostly from external threats. So it works with the skeletal system to help protect itself were you to intake some kind of object that was sharp enough to pierce. The rib cage would stop that piercing object from hitting our heart, which would then again lead to another fatal consequence. As was stated with all these systems, if all these systems did not work together, we would not maintain homeostasis and we would have fatal consequences. Amen. This is my works cited page. I will also upload my actual slide presentation with the Dropbox, and that way you'll be able to see any kind of slides you want. Other than that, that is my presentation. Thank you.